Hello, we're going to take you through the passenger briefing on our King Air B200. This is 840 Charlie Romeo, our second King Air. We're also going to cover medical crew member training and any differences between this and our other King Air B200. So we're just going to start as if we were approaching the aircraft here. So again, as we approach the aircraft, we always approach from this quadrant back here. So there's never any reason for us to go in front of the wing where the propellers are, especially if they're removing. There's nothing really on the other side of the aircraft that you need to be concerned with. So this, after the wing and to the left side of the tail, this is your safe quadrant right here. This is where we do all of our loading and unloading of the aircraft. So as we approach it, if the engines are ever turning, do not approach the aircraft. Just like with the helicopter, if it's spinning, stay away until you get a visual confirmation with your pilot. Normally, your pilot or safety officer will open the door for you, but just in case you ever needed to open this door from the outside, it's going to take two hands. There's a red button right here. You're going to have to depress this red button fully and take this handle and simultaneously rotate it down to the open position. At that point, that will release the latches and the door will deploy automatically. And you can see the steps come down with it, and it is now safe to enter the door. There is one limitation with this door, and that is one person at a time. Never, ever, ever should we see two people trying to climb on this door simultaneously. So always one person. The other feature that we have that helps us loading and unloading patients is you'll see these redundant door cables right here, which support the weight of the door and the weight of anyone who's on the door. It gives us a really narrow area as far as loading a patient or unloading them. So typically when we load or unload, we're going to disconnect one cable here. It allows us a lot wider of an area to load from. However, in this condition, the door is not safe to be climbed up or down. So if you ever approach the door and you only see one cable supporting it, confirm with the pilot or your safety officer before actually climbing up this or down. As you can see, it's very easy to remove and add these cables, so it wouldn't take much at all for us to put this back on. So if you'd like to climb inside the aircraft, then we'll go ahead and take a look at the rest of the features on this King Air B200. Like to slide forward, then maybe get a shot of the door to the aircraft. Again, typically your pilot or your safety officer is going to operate this door, but we'll go ahead and walk through how it is operated. It's pretty heavy, so it takes a bit of force to pull it up. Once it closes, we need to make sure it actually latches. So this handle here is marked in three positions: open, latch, and lock. Latch will just hold the door there, but we actually want to lock this before any sort of flight. So right now the door is locked. We confirm that by looking at 4 pins and a red lever. So our pins are in these witness holes right here, and we should see that green witness line. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have 4 pins. And right here you'll see lift step to inspect door lock. So we're going to lift this step up. This is the actual door lock mechanism in here. You can see that red handle is in there. If this door is not safe, you're either not going to see that red handle or it's not going to be fully seated. Let me see if I can replicate that. So if we ever see that condition right there, that is not safe. That red lock is not all the way around the plunger there. And you also see that some of these green pins are not quite lined up. So this is an unsafe condition. We cannot fly in this condition. So we want to make sure we have 4 pins, and that red arm there is around that plunger. There's even a red button here for a light. So at night, if you need to illuminate this to actually see it, simply press the red button, visually check it in there, and then you can release it. So in that condition, the door is secure. Now, as far as opening the door, we have a button inside just like we do on the outside. This is actually a pressure vessel, so we pressurize this aircraft when we're in flight. So if there's any sort of differential pressure between the inside and the outside of the cabin, it adds resistance to this button. So the higher the cabin pressure is, the more force it would take to open this. It's a safety feature. So here on the ground, we're unpressurized. Depress the button fully with your thumb, and then rotate the handle all the way to the open position. Push the door open, release the latch, and at this point, the door will deploy automatically. Just like that. Emergency exit. So again, our door is our primary exit if we needed to, but if we had to exit, we have a hatch here. It's an overwing exit. It's got one red lever here, exit, pull. Just going to pull this down. That's going to release this hatch, and you'll be able to kind of pull it in a little bit, turn it on its side, and then push it through the window that you just created and exit out there. We do have a feature that's a lock on this door, and you'll see right here, must be unlocked before takeoff. So if you ever look up here and you see 2 reds, this exit is locked. You won't be able to open it. So one of our conditions before we fly is we unlock the exit. This exit can also be opened from the outside, and it is clearly marked. So in a crash situation, rescuers would be able to open this hatch as well and extract us. So, but again, we'd pull the red lever down, turn it on its side, throw it out the window. As you exit onto the wing, head back towards the tail. Do not make a left turn and head up towards the propeller with the engine and fuel and the propeller probably still moving. That's a very unsafe direction. But that is our emergency exit. In the cabin here, to darken them, these are polarized windows. So they have two elements, and right now they're aligned with each other, so they let light through. As we line these up out of phase, 90 degrees, you'll see that it tints them quite a bit. So if you're in flight and you want to darken this down here, simply rotate these 90 degrees to darken the window. The problem with that is, as we're on the ground, this traps light in there, and it will actually heat these windows up, and it can possibly warp and distort them. So as we're sitting here on the ground, since there's no movement of air on the outside cooling these down, these actually need to be in the untinted or open position. So always make sure before you leave the aircraft, all of these windows are in the bright, the open position. But then once we're airborne or once we're taking off, feel free to darken them down as necessary. While we're talking about this, a couple of other items. So above each seat station and patient station here, we have a couple of elements. First is a light. So with the battery on, anytime we're on ship's power or generator, you'll be able to depress this button right here and turn on this little spotlight. We also have ventilated air that comes out here. So running air conditioner primary comes out the top. And we've got, I believe, about 8 of these vents down here along the ceiling. So you can adjust these as necessary. You can turn them to limit, to decrease, or increase the rate of flow on there. Another feature that we have is cabin lighting. So underneath each of these windows here, we have a little eyebrow light that we can turn on up front. So we have a massive amount of lighting here in the back. So if you're back here at night, feel free to just tell us if you want it brighter or darker, and we'll customize that to your liking. On the ceiling, we are a pressurized aircraft. So anytime we fly really above sea level or so, this vessel is going to be pressurized. We can maintain a cabin level pressurization of sea level all the way up to about 17,000 feet. So if we're on a really far cruise, this airplane's most efficient up around 20 to 25,000 feet. So if we're going that far, we really want to get up high. That means our cabin altitude is going to be closer to probably about 4,000 to 6,000 feet. So if you ever have a patient that's altitude critical, let us know, and we'll try and verbalize with you what altitude we're going to be cruising at and what our cabin altitude will be. In the unlikely event we ever lose pressurization, oxygen masks are going to deploy from the ceiling. And I'm just going to deploy this one down so we can actually witness this. So as soon as this cabin altitude goes above 12,500 feet, oxygen masks will drop down. These will actually get pressed down by a plunger, and you can see they're just like an airline style mask. So what you're going to have to do, they're tethered here with a little pin. You're going to have to pull the mask closest to you down. That's going to remove this pin and start the flow of oxygen to the mask. There's a rebreather bag in here and an elastic cord. Pull the bag out, take the cord, go behind your head with it, put the mask up against your face. This is a rebreather mask, but the bag may or may not inflate depending on what sort of altitude we're at and what your breathing rate is. But there's plenty of oxygen masks here in the back, and again, these will deploy automatically, or the pilot can deploy them manually if need be. But anytime our cabin goes above 12,500 feet, those will automatically drop down. So let's go ahead and stow this back up. As you're sitting here in the seat, seat belts need to be fastened the entire flight. So there are periods in flight where you may need to get up out of your seat. Typically, if we're in smooth air, there's not a problem with that, but you just need to verbalize and let your pilot know. Something as simple as, Isaac, I'd like to come out of belt. And your pilot will go ahead and confirm that, okay, come out of belt, it's smooth, or no, stay in belt, we're just about to land, or we're just about to penetrate some turbulence. So just verbalize with that. Communication is key. But your seat belt here, very typical Beechcraft seat belt. You've got a lap belt portion here. 2 pieces joined together, just like every other aircraft seat belt. It can be tightened down as necessary, and this keeps the slack there. These seats also have a third point, a shoulder harness. This comes down and it fastens on this little post here and keeps it on there. Both the seat belt and the shoulder harness need to be fastened for taxi, takeoff, and landing. Once we're actually airborne, if you need to take the shoulder harness off, you can. Just keep the lap belt portion on unless you verbalize with us that you're coming out of belts. We also have, so this is a 3-point harness. We also have a 4-point harness here, which is actually securing this backpack. So let's pull this out here. So this 4-point harness is found on some of our seats. Very typical 4-point harness, very much like you'll find in a helicopter. It also has a lap belt portion here. attaches there. It can be adjusted from either side. You rotate to release that. It also has a shoulder belt portion, so you'll see two different shoulder belts that come down, making 4 points. These can be adjusted down here, or they can be loosened. You'll also see it's got an inertial wheel on it too that'll actually stop if need be. If you need to release only the shoulder belt portion and not the lap belt, if you look behind there, there's a little metal tab. It's right here behind the shoulder belts. If you press up on this, it actually releases both shoulder belts, but it keeps your lap belt fastened. So it's a little secret that most people don't know about on these seats. A couple of other functions of these seats. So if you look right here, we have an armrest. So the armrest that's on the outboard side is always up, but the armrest on the inboard side can actually be raised and lowered. So let's see here. So if you feel right underneath here, there's going to be a metal tab that you have to squeeze up on. That releases the lock. So you can position this up and then it's going to lock. Just be careful with this. If we're moving in and out of the aircraft, this is really flimsy. And if you sit on it, if you lean against it, if you hit it with the bag or catch it, you most likely will break it off. So easiest thing to do is when we're moving about the aircraft, depress that lever underneath, put the armrest fully down, and that gives us a lot more room in the aisleway here. Also on our seat we have our intercom plugs. So you'll see on 840 this particular seat has an extension just because the plugs are buried behind this armrest here. So your headset plugs into both of these. One is for your earphones, the other is for your microphone. They are sized differently, so they will only fit one way. Typically though, it's just going to be right there in the wall. We do use noise canceling headsets, which we'll go through in a minute, but that allows communication through the intercom. You'll also be able to hear your pilots and flight crew and any sort of outside transmissions as well. One other feature about this seat, these two seats right here actually have a recline function and a lean forward function. So if you need to lean the seat back forward for any reason, there's a tab right here that you press back on that allows you to lean this forward. Once it's fastened back, we raise the armrest here, you'll see a tab right here. This is your recline function on the seat. If you depress this down and you add weight to the back, it'll allow you to recline the seat almost completely flat. And then to raise the seat back up, simply depress that down and it'll return to its upright position. Has to be upright for taxi, takeoff, landing, just like the airlines, but in flight you can always recline it down if you find that more comfortable. A couple of other points to cover while we're in here. So as always, this is a no smoking aircraft, naturally. So we'd appreciate if you'd refrain from smoking. No smoking within 50 feet of the aircraft on the outside. Cell phones. If you have a cell phone, it needs to be off or on airplane mode from the time that we actually shut that cabin door until we've landed at our destination. So just remember to do that. If you want to take pictures with your phone or listen to music, make sure it's on airplane mode ahead of time, and that will satisfy that. Next point that we can cover is fire extinguishers. So we have two fire extinguishers on this aircraft, one in the cockpit, one in the cabin. This is our cabin fire extinguisher. It's located in the same position on both aircraft. So you enter the doors immediately after that. Just pull these two tabs right here to release it. It's going to work like every other fire extinguisher. So there's a safety pin in here. You're going to pull the pin out. So we use the acronym PASS, P-A-S-S. You're going to pull the pin, aim it at the base of the fire. You're going to squeeze this handle down, and you're going to sweep back and forth until you've discharged it or the fire is extinguished. So we have one here. We also have one that's in front of the co-pilot seat, just underneath the seat. So if you're ever sitting in the co-pilot seat, your pilot's going to ask you to familiarize yourself with that as far as extracting it in an emergency. Okay, so we're going to talk about the medical equipment here in 840 Charlie Romeo. This is probably the primary difference between this one and our other King Air 370 Charlie Sierra. So both of them have a tandem LifePort Plus, which is a patient loading utility system, or a LifePort base unit. So tandem, we can actually fit two LifePort sleds in here. Two patients, two isolates. They fit head to toe, just like in here. Unlike 370, we only have two positions for these life locks. We have a forward position and we have a fully aft position. There is no mid position in this. So as we slide the patient in, which we'll demonstrate later, we need to make sure that both the forward foot and the aft foot are actually locked in to these life locks. It's possible with this to get a false positive where you've slid it in and it locks, but your forward is only locked in here, or your aft is only locked in here, and it's not locked with both. So just be aware it has to be fully forward or fully aft and locked in there. Another difference with this is our actual equipment that we have in these LifePort bases. So we can't see them, but we have 3 M-size oxygen tanks in these LifePort bases. This forward tank is always on. So as soon as you plug into any of these two oxygen ports, we have one here on the aft unit, we have one here on the forward unit, those oxygen tanks are always on to feed this. So this M tank here is always on to this. If we deplete this M tank, we can turn on either of the two aft tanks, and that will continue to flow out this, this Ohio port right here. So that's our oxygen system. Next up is our actual inverter. So we'll go ahead and cover the inverter. You'll see here there's an inverter switch, and there's a panel light switch. Panel lights simply just lights up a blue luminescent strip here at night, so you can see this a little bit easier. But inverter, INV is your inverter switch. There's also a green witness light here. So as soon as we turn the inverter on, you'll see this actually light up. You're now getting power out these three outlets. And if you look up here at this unit, you're also going to have power out these three outlets, and you'll see a green light here as well. So that one switch on the aft unit turns on all 6 plugs here. So that is our inverter, and again, we don't have any controls here on the forward unit, but we do have access to air and suction and oxygen and electrical, but everything has to be turned on here at the back unit. So that's our inverter. Next up is our suction pump. So we've got a white suction Ohio port here and one on the forward. Those are linked together. We have to turn on our suction pump, and you'll hear it there. You'll be able to confirm. You can plug in at either position. The other thing that we've done with this aircraft is we've pre-staged a regulator up here at the forward end. So if you look, there's a regulator right in here. This is not actually attached to the aircraft until you pull this out with this Ohio plug and you actually plug it in to the suction. At this point, you now have regulated suction through here. Your suction canister is right down here in our bracket, and then you can plug in to this with your yank hour and do whatever you need to. So we'll go ahead and turn suction on. Here is our air compressor, or compressed air. We only have one on this aircraft. 370 has 2 linked in tandem. So to turn on our compressed air, turn that on right there. That's going to come out the 2 yellow Ohio ports, either aft or forward, either one. And that's it as far as air. We don't have a second compressor to turn online, so we just have these 2 right in there. So we'll go ahead and turn that off. So in each seat back pocket here, we have a few different things that we're going to cover next. You'll see these 2 yellow bags right in here. These are personal flotation device or devices, and we also have briefing cards as well. So I pulled them out. Our briefing card is in English as well as Spanish on there, so familiarize yourself with this, especially if it's been a while since you've flown on our aircraft. If we have any ride-alongs, any family members, anything like that, they need to look at this as well. Very typical. Most people are familiar with this. It's also going to show how to use your oxygen mask. It's going to show the location of our survival kit and our first aid kit, as well as fire extinguishers. Survival kit and first aid kit are located in the aft baggage compartment. They're in a red bag, so I've brought this bag forward. This is a combination survival kit, and as we open this up, we're going to see it also has our first aid kit in here as well, which is this yellow or this orange pouch right here is our first aid kit. So all this is contained together, it's just some basic survival kit material here in the back. So we'll go ahead and close that back up. We also have our personal flotation devices. So anytime we do any sort of extended overwater flights, not really to Hawaii, but crossing the Monterey Bay area or up or down the coast, it happens quite a bit. You need to be familiar with the location and the use of these personal flotation devices. There are enough for 8 occupants of this aircraft. That's every single seat filled and 2 patients in here. So there are plenty of personal flotation devices. You're going to tear or pull this tab right in here to rip it off. That is going to give you this, so you can unfold it, put it over yourself like that. It's going to have these 2 white tabs on here, which are going to go around your back and then back in front, and there should be enough material left over for you to tie them together in the front. And that is your personal flotation device. There's 2 different ways of inflating this. We're actually going to demonstrate inflating it outside. The first is to pull this red tab right in here, which is going to open up this CO2 canister and inflate the vest. If that's insufficient or it doesn't work, you can breathe through this red tube right in here. It's got a one-way check valve that will also keep this vest inflated. The one important thing though is put these on before we have to ditch in the water. However, do not inflate it until you're actually climbing outside the aircraft. It would be possible to accidentally tear this or puncture this as you're exiting, and plus with this inflated it's a little bit more difficult to move around. So we're going.
Okay, you're on.
So now we're outside the aircraft. We're actually going to demonstrate inflating one of these just so you know what to expect. So I've got it tied around me. Now I'm going to press or pull down. It says jerk to inflate. Just like that. So you can see it's inflated itself. That would keep me buoyant in any sort of water condition. If this starts leaking or that's insufficient, I can blow through there to actually inflate it further. So that is our personal flotation device.